Test mic. Hey, what's up, guys? Learning with Rich here. So, for today's topic, I'm going to teach you how to create a solid and surface. Okay, so let's get started. So, we are going to create a new one. And just for a review, so what we are going to do is we are going to create first our two curves. Okay, because we will be needing the curve for us to be able to create our solids and surface. All right, so if you still remember, these are the nodes that we have used. So we use points by coordinates. So let's say, for example, I'm going to create a rectangle. So I need 4 points. So I'm going to copy this one, Control C and Control V, right? So I need 4 points for this. All right. Okay, so let me just change my background here to 3D. So I'm going to arrange it. Okay. So for example, the rectangle that we'll be creating is 10 points. So we'll be needing 10 units. We'll be needing 5 units. And then we will be needing 0 as well. All right, so those are the numbers that we need. So I'm going to change back to navigation, grab view navigation. So I need three numbers for my rectangle. So I'll be needing number here. So number, right? So that's my first number. Again, copy paste, Control C, Control B. So I'll be needing 0. I'll be needing 5 units. So 5. So I'll be needing 10 units. So I'll change this to 10. All right. So for my first point here, so just a review. So this is a 0. So you can put there 0 and 0. Okay. And then for our second point, so this is x is 0 and then y is 5. So I'm going to put my 0 to x and then y for 5. There you go. And then we need this one. So our x here is 10 and then our 5 or our y here is 5. So y is 5, x is 10. There you go. And then from here, x is 0, x is 10, y is 0. So 10x, y 0. There you go. So we just created our 4 points here. So we are now going to create our polygon. So I'm going to use here polygon by points, this one, by points. Right, so we need to combine these 4 points here for us to be able to put it here. So that's why, if you still remember, we created a list last time. So we will be using list create. So list create. So since we have 4 points here, so we will be adding 4 items here. So we are going to click plus, plus, plus. Okay, so we now have 4 items. So we'll be putting our point there. All right. Okay, and then after that, we are now going to put this one there. There you go. So we just created our rectangle. So let's say, for example, we are going to create also a triangle. So let's say our triangle is somewhere here. So this is the first point of my triangle. This is the second point of my triangle. And then this is the third point. So basically, the numbers that we need is 5, 10, 15. Okay, and then we also need 20 and then 25. Okay, so we need uh, three more numbers. Okay, so let me just change back again to graph view navigation. So I'm just going to copy this. So copy and then Control V, Control B, Control B. All right, so I need three numbers here. Okay, so I need 15, 20, and 25 units. All right, and then I'll be using points by coordinates again. So I'm going to click this, Control C, and then Control V to copy. All right, so you just need to disconnect this one. Since you copied that, it's connected to the numbers here. All right. Okay, so we need 3 points. So I'm going to copy this, Control B, Control V. There you go. Now for the first point of our triangle is here. So that is 5, 10, 15. X is 15. So X is 15 and Y is 0. There you go. Okay, and then from here, X is 20 and then Y is 5. Okay, so X is 20 and Y is 5. Y is 5. There you go. And then from here, so this is 25. So X is 25, Y is 0. So X is 25 and then Y is 0. All right, so that's it. So what we're going to do is just like this one. So we are going to create polygon by points. So I'll just copy that, Control B, disconnect. All right, so again, since we have 3 points here, so we need to combine these 3 points by using lists. So we are going to create another list. So Control C, Control V, then we're going to put it here. Okay, and since we only have 3 points here, so let's select this one, minus, to remove one item. So there you go. I'm going to put that there, put, and then there you go. All right, so we just created our rectangle and triangle. So if you want, what you can do is you can group that. Okay, you can select and then right click, create group. So that is for our triangle. Okay, and then the other one, let's select this group here. So this is for our rectangle. So you can also press Control G. Okay, so this is for our rectangle. There you go. So rectangle, and then we have triangle. Okay, so if you click, so that's our rectangle. So this is our triangle. Now, last time we also combined these two curves that we have, our two polygon. So we combined that again by using list create. All right, so I'm going to copy this, select, Control C, Control V. Okay, and then again, you just need to disconnect that. All right, so I'm going to remove two items here. We only have two items here. We only have two polygons. I'm going to put my polygon here, and then I'm going to put my other polygon here. So we now have combined these two. So if I click this one, it will highlight these two objects here. Okay, so last time we also used two methods or two nodes that we can use to edit or modify our curve. Okay, so if you remember, we use translate. Translate, it's like move in Revit or AutoCAD. Okay, so actually when you move it creates also a copy of the object. All right, so let me just look for translate. All right, so translate, I'll be using how about direction and distance. Okay, so direction and distance. Okay, oh, how about just direction? I don't need to specify the distance here. Okay, so I'm going to use translate direction and distance. I mean just direction. So I'll use this one, translate. Right, so let me just remove this one so that I only have to input geometry and then the direction. So the geometry that we will be connecting, of course, is these two polygons that we have, these two curves. So I'm going to connect that to geometry. And then if you hover your pointer to the direction, so as you can see, it's asking for vector. Okay, so I'm going to look for vector here. So vector. Okay, and we will be using here vector by coordinates. So I'm going to click this. There you go. Okay. All right. So for our vector by coordinates, so we have we need to specify 3 points here. So I will just use the numbers that we have here. So let's say for the x-axis, so I'm just going to put that to 0. So I'll just put that to 0. Same with my y, 0 as well. Okay, so I just use the 0 number here. But if you want to make it tidy, you can just add another number node here so that you will not be clicking this and then connecting this, showing a very long wire here. Anyway, it's up to you. So aside from that, I need letter Z axis. So let's say that is, I'll just use 10. All right, so 10, connect. And then after that, let us now connect our vector to the direction it's asking for vector. So I click that. There you go. All right, so like what I have said, it actually creates a copy of the two polygon that we have here. So that's the translate. Okay, again, you can select both and then Control G, double click this, and then change to translate or move. Okay, now the next thing that we did last time is we also rotate, right? So I'm going to look for rotate. Oops. Rotate. So I'll be using here origin, axis, and degrees. All right, so let me use this one. Okay, geometry, rotate. So we need the geometry, origin, axis, and degrees. Okay, so for the geometry, again, we will be using our uh, two polygons here. Oh, not these two, but these two here. All right, so I click this geometry that we have here, these two polygon, these two curves. So I'll just connect that there. And then for the origin, if you hover your pointer, it's asking for point. Now, what we are going to do is we're going to get the center point of these two polygons that we have here. If you still remember, that is what we did last time. So what we are going to do is let's look for our geometry. Let's look for the curves. It's on our polygon. And this is what we are going to use, center. Okay, it returns average point of corners of polygons. So I'm going to click that center, all right? And then it's asking for polygon, okay? So for our polygon, so we will be using this, okay? Let's use this too. There you go, okay? So it gets the center point of these two polygon from these two curves. All right, so I'm going to connect now that to the origin. There you go. And then we also need to have an axis. Now it's asking for vector. So let's look for vector again. Okay, for vector, I think what we can do is let's use the vector by coordinates here. Okay, so let's try to use this one. Or aside from that, you can type here, oops, just delete this one. If you want z-axis, okay, if you want z-axis, so let's look for vector and then let's look for z-axis here. So let's click this one, okay. Oh, not this one, so but vector z-axis, where is that? Right, this one, okay. So let's remove this one, all right. So our axis now is on our z-axis. So I'm going to connect that there. And then we also need to look for degrees. So let's look for number slider. So number slider. All right, so now let's try to set this one. So our minimum here is minus 360 and then the maximum is 360 degrees. Step is 0.1. So this is what we did last time. So let's just do it again. All right, and then I'm going to connect this one there. There you go. So if I'm going to move this one, as you can see, it's now rotating. Now, this is just a review. This is what we did last time, right? Okay, so let's say minus 90. Okay, so let's say, for example, what we are now going to do is we are going to create two two surfaces, like for example, or solids. Okay, surfaces and solids. So that is what we are going. So for the meantime, let us hide first this geometry that we created. This one. Let's hide this one. So let's uncheck the preview and what else? This two. All right. So let's right click. By the way, let's try to group this. Control G. This is our rotate. Okay. All right. So let's hide our translate. So right click, preview. Okay. So what we are going to do now is let's try to create a extrusion. Okay. So extrude. Okay. So as you can see, you have two ways here, or I mean there are several ways to create an extrusion. So you can create a curve, you can create a surface as well. Okay, so let's try to use extrude as, oh, how about surface? Let's, no, no, not that one. How about this one? Okay, curve, extrude. Okay, so we have two inputs here. So we have curve and then we have distance. So there's a default value here. So the moment we connect here a curve, so you'll be able to see now the extruded object, which is actually a surface. Okay, so let's look for our curve. So you can use our two curves here. Okay, so you can use that as your curve, the two polygon, this one. Okay, so I'm going to connect that to here. Okay, so as you can see, it's now created our surface. Okay, right? So aside from that, so aside from using curve extrude, which has an input of curve and distance, so let's try to use direction as well. Okay, so let's say I'm going to remove this one. I'll delete, and then I'll use this one, direction. Okay, so it's asking for again for a curve. So let's use this one, curve, and then the direction. So there is a value there already, 0 comma 0 comma 1, which is vector by coordinate. So you can change this one. By default, there is already a 1 value. It's a z-axis. So if you go to vector coordinates, all right, so this one. Okay, so let's try to specify. So let's say for our x and y, let's leave it at 0. But for our z, let's use our, let's say 10. Just use 10 for this one. For the z value. Let's connect. There you go. And then let's connect our vector to our extrusion. There you go. Okay. So the objects that you just created here are surface. Okay. So it's a surface. You can see it's a surface. Okay. And then let's try to create another extrusion here. So this time we will be using a solid extrusion. So we have surface extrusion. This time it's solid extrusion. So let's look for, how about solid? This one. Extrude as solid. There you go. So let's connect our two polygon again to our curves here. But before that, for us to be able to see it nicely, let's try to this two here. Let's hide the preview of our extrusion by surface. Okay. And then as you can see, so we now have our solid. So let's connect our vector here as well. There you go. So it's now solid. Okay. So this is just an example of extruding our polygon as a surface or solid. Okay. So you can use these two, and you can either use these tools here. Okay, so you can just try to explore. So we just use two nodes here to extrude an object, but you can use the other tools here as well. Okay, so aside from using extrusion, there is another way to create an solid. Okay, so this time around, let's try to use loft. Okay, so if you are using Revit, so loft is something like blend. Okay, blend in Revit. Okay, so how to do that? So let's try to hide first our solid here. So let's uncheck the preview. Okay, and then this is now the right time for us to unhide our rotate here. So let's see the preview. All right, so this is what we are going to do. So basically loft is you are combining two shapes, extrusion, okay? But this time it's on different angle. So that is what we are going to do, okay? So we are going to create a solid model by lofting these two objects here, okay? So let's say for example, we want this rectangle to be loft to this rectangle here. So in lofting, you need a bottom and then you also need a top. Okay, so let's look for loft. Loft. How about, what's this? Loft by cross section. All right, so let's use this one. Loft, surface by loft, which is asking for a cross section. Now here it's asking for a curve. Okay, so we just like what I have said, we need two curves here. Okay, so we need a bottom, and then we also need a top curve. Now, for us to be able to uh, convert this, so we are going to create first a list. Okay, so list create, very useful one. So list create. Okay, so we need two items. So we need the bottom and then we also need the top portion. So we already have the bottom, which is this one, the rectangle that we have here. So this is the bottom. So if I'm going to click this, so as you can see, it highlights. So that's our bottom. So I'm going to click this polygon and then connect that to my first item here. Now, so what we need to do is we need to select this rectangle here. Okay, so we need to select this rectangle here. Now the problem is how are we going to select that? So if you are going to check out your rotate here, okay, so this rotate, it came from this geometry. The geometry that we use here came from here. Okay, so that's why what we are going to do is we are going to create another curve, but we are going to use this one. Okay, so how to do that? So to do that, so we will be using here last item. Okay, last item. All right, so I'm going to use this one. Oh, I mean the first item. First item. Okay, so based on our list here, so the first item. Oh no, not that one. Okay, here the first item. It's here. Connect that there. Our first item. So if I click this one, as you can see, it highlights this one. So that's our first item. And then our second item actually is this one, the last item. But we are not concerned with this one, we're only concerned here. Okay, so that on our list, so we get this one. So this is our first item. So I'm going to connect that here. So it's now complete. So we now have our first item, the bottom, I mean, and then we now have the top. So that's it. So let us now try to convert that to loft. There you go. Okay. So again, it's just a surface, but you can also create a solid here. Loft by solid. So you can click that one. There you go. So let's say I'm going to remove that. So let's try to connect this one here. There you go. Okay. Okay. So again, just to explain, least first item. So the first item, if you are going back here, so our first item there is our rectangle. And then our last item, that is our triangle. Okay. So since this the property or the information that we got from our rotate came from this one. So it's the same. So this is also your first item and then this is the last item, even in your rotate. That's why I just use the geometry from there to get the first item. Now, if you want these two here to be loft as well, so again, you can use solid by loft. So Control C, Control V, okay? And then let's create another list. Control C, Control V. Let's disconnect these two. So for my first item, the first item that I'm going to use is the triangle here, which is the bottom here. So that's our bottom. All right. And then for the item number one, so we need to select this one. Okay. So we are going to use last item. So last item. There you go. So we have the first item, which is the rectangle, and then our last item is our triangle. So again, it came from here. So as you can see on our list here, so this is the first item, our rectangle, and then our last item is the triangle. So I'm going to connect now the geometry here. This one, there you go. So if you hover up, so this is now the polygon. So if you click that one, it highlights that one. So now that we have our first, our top, I mean our bottom and top, so we are now going to connect it here. There you go. Okay. Now, if you want these two objects to be combined, meaning you just select one list and then these two will be selected because from here it's separate, right? We create our solid loft separately. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hide it first by unchecking the preview. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a list again. List, Control C, Control V. Okay. And then I'm going to connect my list here. So this is my bottom and then this is my top, right? So if I click this one, these two is actually the top and then these two here is our bottom, right? So we have the bottom and then we also have the top, okay? But the problem here is if you are going to use solid by loft, so let's look for loft, okay, solid by loft. If we are going to combine these two here, oh, not this one. It's just a cross section. Solid by loft using cross section. This one. Alright, so if we're going to connect that, so there's an error. Okay? Because what happens is the program reads as you are trying to combine or you're trying to loft this first item and then this one. And then after that, you are also lofting this item and then this one. So it's wrong, right? So the program is reading as this is your bottom, the other one you're using as your top. So it's wrong. So that's why you are getting a wrong, an error here. Okay, so what we are going to do, if you still remember during our previous video, we have this command that, or we have this node that we call transpose. Okay, so which is what we are going to do. All right, because here on our list here, so what happens is the program reads this one as your bottom and then this one as your top. So as you can see, it's wrong, right? So this one as your bottom and then this one as your top. Again, it's wrong. So what we're going to do is we are going to transpose that to make it like this is your bottom and then this is your top. This is your bottom, and then this is your top. Okay, so that's why we use transpose. So I'm going to connect my list to that one. There you go. So it's just transposed now. So if I'm going to hover that, okay, so we now have this polygon here. Okay, we now have this bottom, which is this one, and then we click this one, so that's your top, and then we have another set of list. So we have this as our bottom, and then we have this as our top. So now, if we are going to connect that to our solid by loft, so it's now like this. Okay, and since we got it from this one, from the rotate geometry, you can play around with the degrees there. So you can slide this one, and then you are expecting it will react, right? Okay. Right, so basically this is how you create a surface and solid using extrusion and loft. All right, so these are just some of the tools that we can use to modify our 3D model. So if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can put it on the comment section below. And once again, thank you for watching, guys. Have a nice day.